2, 1.
All right. Are we live or ready to go?
Are we on Facebook?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first and hopefully working this time episode of the Emerald Empire podcast. I am Jake Capone. With me today, I have Mike Jacobs, Marcus Gibbs, and Aaron Idle. Us four make up the Emerald Empire. Basically, today's podcast is going to be about it's going to be a retrospective on professional wrestling in the Gulf Coast area, basically talking about the history of the Gulf Coast professional wrestling, as well as, you know, the state of wrestling today, not just in the Gulf Coast, but on the independents all over, and kind of our thoughts on what would make it better and what would, you know, make it worth going to see again, basically. We are also going to be taking questions through YouTube Live. So if you guys have questions or want to comment about what we're talking about, or say you want to hate on us for our opinions, go right ahead. We just want everybody to be involved. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to bring up the cameras so everybody can say hello. We now have all four of our cameras up. Don't mind looking at Aaron Idle's roof of his car because he is driving at the moment. So
yeah, and luckily enough, traffic isn't bad. Otherwise, we would have a very censored show because I hate driving and I express my opinions to every and all drivers, whether good or bad.
But we are up and going. We have, like I said, everybody here. So I'm going to bring up the YouTube real quick just to make sure that I can see if anybody's wanting to ask questions or anything. And we do have sound, so that's a plus. Woo! Party! Awesome. Okay. So, first of all, I guess we will kind of give our backgrounds for, you know, what we offer to this podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Mike. If you want to tell everybody, you know, your background in wrestling and how you got started and everything.
Well, in 1999, I started training with Danny Rowland here in Pensacola. Trained with him for about 8 months. Started training with Bobby Dahl after that. And I've been in and out a few times in the last 20 years. I have a real grappling-based kind of wrestling gimmick due to my martial arts and judo experience. So I just, I'm very old school 60s and 70s kind of psychology where wrestling's about wrestling, not about the personas or gimmicks. So that's about my background.
Okay, Marcus, if you'd like to go ahead and let everybody know yours.
Started around 2006, trained by the Bruiserweight Maze, among other guys, Cyrus LeVay, Mike Jacobs, Brutal Joe Gibson. Started as a referee, and maybe after that year and a half became a wrestler. So that's the basics.
Okay. For me, I started training in 2002, began wrestling in 2003. I was actually trained up in the Midwest. I didn't start in the Gulf Coast. I'm a transplant from Illinois, but I was trained by the late Bud Chaplin and for National Wrestling Coalition. He wrestled as the Red Baron, actually, up there. But yeah, I mean, I've been doing this ever since 2003, so it's been a while. And then lastly, we have Mr. Aaron Idle. Good sir, would you like to let everybody know?
I was hatched from an egg in the middle of a pro wrestling ring. So I started in 2000 with this guy who was in Alabama, Will Pritchard. Learned the basics, moved over to Panama City, Samoans, Armstrong, just every little person I could kind of get under and learn how to wrestle and work. Got my brain kicked in a lot, and that's pretty much the story. Just kind of grew up, and I say I grew up in it. Like that's all my family ever watched because they were your typical wrestling fans, and they were watching every type of wrestling. They come on TV and going up to the shows at the Houston County Farm Center in Dothan. So I was drug around to it. So I was just kind of grown up in it without actually being a part of it, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense. So first thing I'm going to ask, I guess, for everybody is who like everybody knows that, you had the Grahams and you had the Fullers and the Welches that were, intricate in making Florida wrestling what it is, or what it was anyway. Who, in your opinion, was the biggest influence for the Gulf Coast itself? Like when it comes to getting professional wrestling actually like booming in this area when it first started?
Fullers.
I was going to say, it was the Welch family.
That was an easy question to answer, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you had a good many families that were around here. I mean, the Galentos, their name is synonymous with Pensacola and the Gulf Coast. But it was the Fuller family that really got things going and really put it on the map in this area.
Yeah, and I think also adding in Lee Fields, because if he hadn't sold his Gulf Coast wrestling to the Welches, we probably wouldn't have that little boom of continental wrestling like we had.
Right.
And I mean, and for those of you watching that don't know, you have several wrestling families that are actually from this area. I mean, you have the Armstrongs that are local to this area. You have, some of the Samoan families have settled in this area, and they're from around here. I mean, for instance, right now some of the ones that are currently in the WWE that are from this area. You have the Usos. You have Roman Reigns, who is currently dealing with some medical issues. I mean, all of these things make the Gulf Coast wrestling like it should to me today, with the history that's in the Gulf Coast area, it should still be as big as it was. At least that's my thought process. I don't know what you guys think, but I don't I'm lost at how it went from as big as it was with the Fullers and the Welches and those guys, where they were, packed houses, to hardly, anything going on now. What's your guys' thoughts on that kind of what happened?
Well, in territory wrestling in general, a lot of times that was the only sport in town. So in big cities, like New York, yeah, you had the Yankees. Yankees was always there, and Boston Sox was always there. In the South, they didn't have a lot of pro teams or anything like that. College teams were probably not. They were popular, but not as popular, because college football was way more popular than the NFL at a certain point. I just think it's just there was just more entertainment options, and then the little subtle parts of the art of wrestling disappears. So then it's almost like you get a copy of a videotape, and then a lot of guys get mad at another guy, and then they just kind of the copy of the tape degrades. The information just breaks down. It gets lost in translation. So among that, and then the lost in translation, and it just kind of just downgrades over time. The guys pass away, guys move away.
And so and you're kind of saying it's like the younger generation, some of the issue is the younger generation not wanting to have the respect to learn from the older generation?
It's a bit of both, because I think sometimes the lack of respect comes from a generation previous not doing it, and then kind of omitting that out of
kind of both sides. Both sides, like they look at the youngins and say, well, I don't want to help the youngins because they just want to go out there and do this and not.
A lot of it's out of jealousy too.
And then you have the younger guys that are like, well, I'm too good. I can do flips. I don't need to listen to you and learn what you have
There's
to say.
also a generation gap that happened where there was a group of guys who didn't want to, once they stopped, they lost their means to make a living. A lot of these guys were like, doesn't matter anymore. I'm done with the business. And then there's some guys who still stayed but weren't as good. They stayed, and then they just passed down downgraded information. It happens everywhere. I mean, some places it's getting back better because I guess guys are going back, finding what they can and piecing it together and figuring it out. But a lot of times it just downgrades. It's just like with everything. It just kind of, you lose the originality, or I guess the original essence to it.
I think it's because the mystique has been killed. The minute the wrestling business was exposed, a very smart person in the business told me one time, nobody likes to be the victim of a scam. And for years, our industry was treated like a legitimate sport, which I still see it as a sport. We're just as athletic, we're have just the same skill. It's just we are still giving people what they want, like they do when they watch football and stuff. But now that it's moved from professional wrestling to sports entertainment, now anybody can do it. And that's not true.
Right. Aaron, what are your thoughts on the question that I posed?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, like, Mike, graded, been overexposed. Anybody and everybody can do it. I mean, you can go online, okay, whatever. But also, the old-timer guys back in the day, they are very jealous to the point where like, guys would get beat up and left in ditch if they were trying to run outlaw shows in their territory. And now, any jackleg with a wrestling ring and $500 disability check is promoting.
Right.
Well, you were a promoter, and you weren't just promoting wrestling. You were promoting music acts. You were promoting baseball shows. You were a promoter. Tim Crockett Sr. was a promoter, not just a wrestling promoter. But and we've lost just the art of promoting.
Right. I mean, back when. Back in the day, you had to know somebody to get in. There was no such schools or anything like that. It was kind of like the mafia, that you had to know somebody to get in. And that's how I came in. I was introduced to somebody. It wasn't a school or anything like that. He tried to break me, tried to beat me up, but I was determined, and I worked my way through it. And I think that needs to be done more. Not everybody has the mind for the business, nor the ability.
I agree. I feel like it's kind of like what Jim Cornette was saying recently on his podcast. I don't know if anybody listens to that podcast, but he was talking recently about how he was talking about the Marco Stunt incident and the David Arquette incident, where the same show they both got injured, and he basically, which I don't necessarily agree with him on some of the stuff he said, but he basically was like, just because you can do the stuff doesn't mean you should do the stuff.
Right.
Like when it comes to For instance, the moves. Okay, you can do a 630 splash. Okay, just because you can do a 630 splash, if it doesn't have premise in the match, doesn't have meaning in the match, doesn't have anything, it's just because it's flashy, what's the point of doing it?
Right.
Or what's the point of doing the hardcore style? I mean, to me, I've never been a fan of the deathmatch wrestling. And that's just because anybody can go out there and beat somebody up with something.
Right.
It doesn't have any psychology. I'm always a big proponent of psychology when it comes to professional wrestling.
Right.
So, like, I'm like I said, when it's the whole thought process of, well, I can do all these flashy things, okay, but why? That to me is where the big disconnect now is, because it's why shouldn't I? These kids are like, well, why should I learn the ring psychology of professional wrestling? Well, because that's what the actual art of professional wrestling is the ring psychology.
Think about this with hardcore matches and stuff like that. If you can't draw, there's no point.
Correct.
Heat draws. Like there's no point in putting your body on. And I don't know how many people Game Changer Wrestling draws. And I know that stuff does draw up north, but just to gratuitously do it, because a lot of people do this. Okay, this is what Justin Stone said about hardcore wrestling.
Shout out to Justin Stone.
Yeah, he's my favorite. He's my first tag partner, first guy I ever tagged with. Justin Stone said that a lot of guys do hardcore because they can't work and they just want to show you how tough they are.
That's right.
When really, hardcore wrestling is like, it's just like a regular match, except for weapons are your spots.
Right.
You got to space and time it out. I wish we had. There was a tape of a match we had called the Bourbon Street Brawl. It was really good. We went like 20-something minutes, and like we kind of spaced everything out. We worked different like weapons in there. But
I mean there's
a lot of heat built up to it.
And with what you're saying, like there are instances where you can build to a match like that. Mm-hmm. But it should be built to a match like that. It shouldn't be every show, well, I'm just coming to this show because I want to hit somebody with something.
Yeah.
Like it should be built to that. Like, back in the territory days, it was you would have them working 2 months before it got to a match like that, and it was a blood feud. I mean, they were literally, you had like Terry Funk, like when Funk and Lawler did the empty arena match, it's like they built to that because they were so hated and all this, they hated each other so much, and we don't want fans to get hurt, so we're going to do this in an empty arena and just beat the hell out of each other. It's that kind of stuff that I'm okay with it that way. But when it's senseless, just doing it to do it and not having any psychology. I mean, professional wrestlers like I said, Terry Funk.
And ask yourself this: the people who do, I'm not saying everybody who does death matches does this, right? But most of the guys who rely really heavily on that, do you really want them bleeding on you?
No.
I don't want people that don't do that bleeding on me. I mean,
but and see, the thing is too, if there's a feud, there's other gimmick matches you can do.
Correct.
That should be your blow-off match anyway. That should be the very last thing that kills the feud, and you go about your own way. You either end up as tag partner, something else, but just to do it, like dude down in Mexico that got a freaking cinder block thrown at him. Full force.
Yeah, I saw that.
Retarded with the hard R.
That needs to be a shirt.
Yes.
My issue with that particular thing is like, if y'all talked about it and the guy who's taking the cinder block is okay with it, that's fine. But he threw that block when that guy wasn't looking. That's what hurts you. It's the moves, it's the things or the strikes you don't see coming.
Right.
Oh, that's Danny. I'll call him back.
Got Danny Rowland trying to get in on the.
Me back.
Trying to get on the conversation here.
What's up, Danny?
All right, hold on. I'm gonna
Go
jump
ahead.
out the meeting real quick. How do I jump out?
Oh, so if you answer, it should just go right out of the flee right out.
Hey, what's going on, Danny? Hello?
Did it get you out of there?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'll just call him right back. Oh, hold on.
Hey, I see you.
I'll leave the meeting.
Your head in the light. There you go. Okay, you're out. Oh, wait, no, you're back in.
As you tell, we planned this out carefully.
Meticulously.
Is this planned out, or are we just we calling it as a read?
Hey, we're old school. We call it as on the fly. So, as far as we'll kind of get away from the hardcore stuff. As far as wrestling today is concerned, I know, at least from my experience up north, up in the Midwest area, you had guys that could wrestle. You had guys that were trained correctly, but you also had guys that would go in to these bookers and say, I'll work for free, or I'll work for $10. I just want to wrestle. Well, are you trained? Well, no, but the bookers will still book them because they're free talent. They don't have to pay them. And that's using the word talent loosely, very loosely.
Right.
To me, one of the biggest issues in independent wrestling today is the promoters and the bookers not wanting to police the thing. They would rather do a show as cheap as they can and not put an effort into either putting flyers out or promoting it correctly, use subpar talent instead of paying talent that would actually get their show over and make them money. It's like, that to me was like one of the first downfalls of independent wrestling. I mean, like, I'm not saying that it's dead, but I mean it's harder and harder to find a reputable company to work for, because you either have companies that will, well, we didn't sell but 30 tickets today, so I'm only gonna be able to give you $5. Well, you should already had the pay for the boys beforehand. It shouldn't have come out of the ticket sales. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. It's and then with the booking the wrestlers that aren't trained, or the wrestlers that will come in and work for free. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've worked shows for free, but most of those shows were benefit shows. The money was going to help somebody else. I'm fine with working shows for free like that, but I've put time and effort and blood and sweat and broken bones into this business not to do it for free. Yes, I love the business. Yes, it's a passion of mine, but still, it's like any other job. If you are talented and you do the job correctly, you should get paid and you should get, taken care of for it. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. I don't know, like, your thoughts on it, but...
Well, if somebody's going to promote, somebody wants to promote professional wrestling, it has to be treated like a full-time job. You have to have someone who's out there all the time, hustling sponsors, putting out the networking, the marketing for the event, to get the money beforehand, to be able to pay the boys, to pay for the building, to pay the insurance, to pay for your concessions.
Which, again, should all be covered well before the show even starts.
But for this region, especially in the Florida Panhandle, and I'm going to throw myself in there, we treat it as a hobby, not as a professional.
Right.
Or profession, excuse me. That we do it anywhere between once a month to once a week.
Well, I mean, and part of the issue with that is because of the downslide of independent wrestling and the issues that we've talked about. Like, it's hard to make a living doing this. Even if I was, say, wrestling 6 days a week, it's still not enough to pay for a family of 4. Like it used to be when if you were working a full-time wrestling schedule, I mean, you could raise a family on a full-time wrestling schedule in the territory days.
Well, that's because they promoted it properly. That's because you had talent, and it was a smaller talent pool. So those scabs who would come in for 10, 15, but they were non-existent. And also, kayfabe was strictly enforced.
Right. Which to me, I mean, yes, I know, and I'm one of these people that, yes, I know that there are quote-unquote smart marks out there that know the business. But to me, you should still use kayfabe. If you are a heel, you should be a heel when you're there. When you're at a show, like you are to play the role and stay in the role. It's not, be out there hugging and kissing and shaking hands with everybody before the show and after the show, but during the show you hate everybody's guts. You get more, and it's all like professional wrestling has always been and is always about drawing emotion from the crowd, drawing emotion from the fans. You get more raw emotion from somebody if you stay in character than if you don't stay in character and they just see you in the ring that way. I mean, I can give you an example. When I met my wife, her uncle was, or I guess they're cousins, but anyway, was in the business. He was a manager in the business. She had family friends that were in the business. She was training to be in the business. When we first started dating, they said I had an attitude, which I was a heel, mind you. They only saw me when I was at the shows. They took the character that I portrayed at the shows as what I actually was like. Now, once they got to know me outside of the shows, they found out that I'm not like that at all. It's totally 180. But when I was there, like I was kayfabing basically the boys with how I was. And apparently I was doing a good job of it because, that's how they were. But, to me, like I see people that are supposed to be the heels going out there and, like I said, shaking hands, signing autographs, yada, yada, yada. I mean, to me, you shouldn't do that as a heel.
I agree. What do you think, Aaron?
What's that?
So
what's your
opinion?
How long has time at all? So had a little alert there pop up. No, I'm with you guys on that. Everybody now, just the way that the business is, thinks that everything in wrestling is cool, and you're just now, you're a drama kid that's in the CrossFit.
I mean, I want to be on the case.
And that's the way that these kids look at it. And I think for us, especially us four and others like us, like we came in at a business in a transition period to where, the territories were, what few that were there were pretty much on live support. But you had guys that were still clinging to kayfabe. They were still teaching us and drilling into our heads of kayfabe. And then somehow another, which, I took a 7-year break. So in that timeline of, going off the wrestling grid and coming back, it's went from, professional wrestling and sport to, just comic book, video game type performance art, where everything you can look and tell is screenplayed and, staged out. And you know what moveset's coming from this guy or from that guy, and it's just not organic. And I think that people just don't want to see that. If you were looking like right now watching Alabama game, and if you knew what play was coming up and how it was going to come up because it's 3rd and 4, and to do it at 3rd and 4, you're not really going to be interested in watching the game.
Right. Well, like I said, Like I said earlier, you just said it too. You know, nobody wants to
I'm fine right
be
now.
victim of a scam, and so, I mean, it's gotten to the point where, for me, in my opinion, that I mean, major wrestling organizations in the, and if it sounds like I'm having a stroke, I'm getting a lot of feedback in my headphones, so it's throwing me off.
Okay,
Um,
I'm back in.
there we go. Yeah, yeah, that's much better. Now I don't sound.
Cool.
I'm sitting there going, But yeah, who wants to watch something where they know the next 3 moves ahead of it? Because I mean, if you're watching like WWE, that's what you already know what's going to happen in the next 2 matches. And I know there's people that were hate on me, just saying, yeah, you're just going to talk about WWE and you're not there.
With WWE's thing, from what I've gathered from years of watching it and hearing it, I think it's more about branding, especially if you listen to Bruce Pritchard. Makes a lot of sense of all that. He puts it all in perspective. A lot of that stuff is about branding. That's why I think like tag teams are not popular over there, because it's all about the brand of WWE, but then I think they're all about the individual brands. You know, It's harder to market 2 people at once as a thing, as a unit, than versus having one. You know,
See,
that's
how did
logic.
like the Rock and Roll Express or the Midnight Express or the Fantastics or the Fabulous Ones, because they didn't have any problems.
All those teams you named wasn't in WWE.
Right, but everywhere else they were able to market them as a pair, and they made tons of money with them.
Exactly. I mean, WWE isn't. I mean, like they've got the Usos, like who are really the only. The Usos and the Revival are like the only 2 legitimate tag teams that WWE has right now in the main roster. Like those 2 teams, which they aren't with the Revival now because I think they got upset with the Revival for some reason, but. Like the Usos, they're pushing to the 9s. Like they are pushing them as a duo. They don't push them as Jimmy and Jay. They are the Usos.
Right. Well, the Hart Foundation,
right?
The British Bulldogs. Even when they put Greg Valentine and Honky Tonk together, they were able to push those tag teams.
I mean, even the Wild, like Pensacola, the Wild Samoans. You got
so
Alpha and
why back then they could push them and make money on them, but why not now?
I don't know, man. I just think they just prefer to brand individuals, you know.
I think a lot of it with WWE is the issues is the instead of them wanting to make stars out of their whole roster, they just want to push 1 or 2 people, and then everybody else is just filler. You know, if you look, and you know. For all the John Cena fans out there, I'm not knocking John Cena, but if you look, for the longest time, it didn't matter how good of any of the other wrestlers were. It was always John Cena going after the title, or John Cena holding the title, or John Cena going after the title. They never circulated. It used to be they would circulate the talent. You know, you'd have somebody run a program with somebody for 3 months, and then they do the blow off, and then they would run it with somebody else, and that person would go back to the back of the line and work their way back up. They don't do that now. They just put them in their spot. Well, you're a mid-carder. You're going to stay a mid-carder for the rest of your time in WWE. You know, you're you know, an enhancement talent. You're going to be an enhancement talent for the rest of your time in WWE. To me, that's WWE's issue. Like, they need to, which Triple H, honestly, with the NXT brand, to me, NXT is a lot better than WWE. I mean, it's the same company, but it's because he is doing it the old school way. He cycles the people. He'll run them for like a program, and then blow that person off to somebody else, start somebody else into the program, and it works because it draws more people into the feelings and the thoughts of what's going on. Like, for instance, with NXT right now, they've got the Aleister Black and well, now he's going with Tommaso Ciampa for the title. You know, they've got that big feud that they're building up. So that kind of stuff, to me, it's Vince not wanting to push more than one guy, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I know you guys have been watching this, as I've been too, the 10 Pounds of Gold series.
That's really
yes,
good.
which is amazing.
Really
They've been doing
good.
an awesome job.
So I'm going to tell you why I think it's working. They're doing something that a lot of other organizations aren't. They're making it about the competition.
Mm-hmm.
It's about wrestling for the title in the prestige, not about gimmicky matches.
Right.
It's not about I'm cooler than you or I'm hotter than you.
And they're making the belt mean something again.
And that's what drew money. Whether it was the Northeast, whether it was Paul Bosch, whether it was Vern Gagne, it was about the wrestling and it was about the titles. Because what was more prestigious? Having that heavyweight title, that world heavyweight title. And Billy Corgan's doing a great job. Him and his team are doing a great job.
Well, and you look at, talking about the prestige of the title and everything. You look back in the old days when you had, Ric Flair was the World Heavyweights champion. Ric Flair lost more matches as the champion.
Yes, he did.
Than anybody, but he stayed the champion. But he gave the belt prestige. It wasn't about his win-loss record. It was about the prestige of that belt. It was what it meant. Nowadays, they throw the belts back and forth like it's a party favor. I mean, it doesn't have any meaning anymore. We do have one question that came up in the live chat from Eric Haynes, who says, in your opinions, what do you believe the industry has moved... in your opinions, why do you believe the industry has moved from more technical wrestling to a flashier soap opera style?
Technical wrestling takes a long time to tell a story with, and when your commercials or when your sponsors are paying for commercial time, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, last thing you want is a guy sitting on a headlock when he could get the message quick, fast. I mean, I think it's just about ad revenues. It's just about money, I mean, which is fine,
Right. Well, you remember the TV matches, the main event was always the longest, and that was maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling matches were geared for TV, 7-minute spots. So you don't have a lot of time to tell a story there. Now, at house shows or pay-per-view, you have a longer time to build up the story. So technical wrestling gets over better there. But you also have very short attention spans now because of TV.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, and I think the issue is with TV, when back, in the old days, when I say the old days, back when we were kids, when you had Saturday Night Main Event, when you had, for me, Continental Wrestling, on Channel 4, with the studio shows, Georgia Championship Wrestling, it was promos, 5, maybe 8-minute matches, but they were all building up for that house show that night. So we're at the Farm Center or at the Omni, and that was going to draw the people there. Now you pull on, WCW did it with their Nitro shows, Raw, WWF did it with Raw. Now you're seeing basically a pay-per-view, once or twice a week now. So you have to be flashier. You got to keep everybody's attention because it's just saturated, per se.
Yeah. Well, literally,
yeah, that's why go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. But, the way wrestling is now, and if you take everything if you take WWE is so far ahead of everybody as far as, just their, presence. But if you take that and then you take the top indies, you could literally have a pay-per-view. You can watch it you can watch one every day. Mm-hmm. Because everybody's with the streaming, which I think is a wonderful thing, especially when you're on the indies. Where it breaks down to this, and this kind of on a tangent, but I just figured since we're here, a lot of times you can have media core talent. You can have guys who are not really super athletic or great looking. I think that you can have a pay-per-view, and as long as you have a great production team, like I think that you can get like a product pushed to the moon. As far as talking about pay-per-view saturation, it's more or less about not so much about saturation, but about if there's so many pay-per-views coming out, I need to have the edge on the technical side. The talented wrestlers and guys who cut promos, that's good. But the advertisement and the technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, go back to what we're talking about. I just thought that was a nice side note. We can talk about that later. That's for later. That's for a later show.
Well, when WWE really took over the country, they took it away from the we're fighting for the belt, but it was more comic book storylines, which, I mean, it's great for the kids. But I would rather watch, like I said, the new NWA, or I'll watch Japanese or Australian or European wrestling, because I'm still a big fan of the competition-based wrestling. I do suspend belief, and it looks like they're fighting, because, like I said, I've grappled with judo. I've fought with my career, and it's more entertaining to me to watch somebody throw a double wrist lock on and watch somebody work their way out of it.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool every once in a while to somebody jump over the top rope, do a couple flips, and land on somebody's face.
But it shouldn't be every move.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't mean as much.
Right.
Well, then it's every single match too, to where you have to start modifying stuff. Like with the guy that I worked with last weekend, El Chachi.
I saw that match,
light
by the way.
heavyweight guy, and some of the stuff we're looking at, as we're watching, the gorilla position, other matches, and we're like, well, shit, we're gonna have to let's take this out, and put this in and do this because those guys just did that. But a lot of times guys don't do that. They just do, whatever their sequence is, because everything's so pre-planned that they can't adapt on the fly and go, okay, well, they just did a moonsault off the top rope. Well, shit, we're not doing that. So instead they do a moonsault. So, and everybody's seen it, and everybody gets, oh, okay, it's a moonsault. So.
Well, and I feel too like one of the issues is, it used to be, and like Jim Cornette will even talk about this on his podcast, and Bruce Pritchard as well, will sit there and they'll talk about how it used to be when you were in the other match, like if you had matches before you were watching everybody's match. If you had matches after you were watching everybody's match. Like the boys watched each other's matches, not just to learn, but also to make sure that they weren't going to do the same stuff out there. Nowadays, again, like he was saying, they'll go and they'll pre-plan everything, and then they'll go out there and, whether somebody did 6 super kicks the last match or not, if they have 5 super kicks planned, they'll do 5 super kicks. They don't care. Which again goes back to the ring psychology and not knowing what they're doing when it comes to ring psychology.
Well, I don't have a problem with pre-planning a match. I mean,
right. But you got to be able to adjust.
Right. When I was really close with Frankie Kane, Frankie Kane was one of the best promoters in wrestling. He told me that pre-planned spots are for TV. That's where you pre-plan and call spots. But if it's a house show, you may be called the beginning. You may be called the finish. But you go out in the ring and you feel the crowd out. And then you wrestle according to how the marks react to what you're doing. And when I started doing that, my matches got better. And I don't think I've had a bad match since then. And it works every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
We do have another question.
Some of my worst matches are ones where we call tons of stuff, and I forget. I'm just going to be honest. So when you're throwing in 37 moves, I'm probably going to remember 2.
Yeah.
Right, and my thing is like, and I'll I'm the type of guy that you can come up and you can tell me your match. You can tell me everything you want to do. But I'm going to tell you, okay, just remember to call it out there too, because I'm not good. Like you said, I'm not going to remember everything. you know.
Or even this, you could have like your sequences that you do, and you could pre-plan your sequences, but you don't necessarily got to call it A to B, CD.
Right.
One person needs to decide that they're going to call that, and then they got to call it as they need it, because some stuff might not be necessary, and they might not be things that you want to take. Like I remember, was it last year, Dothan? The wrestling that guy. I don't know why people put me in there with like they put me in there with the greenest people. I remember they put me in there with this guy. Remember that the black vampire kid with the perm, the James Brown perm.
Yeah, hoodoo, whatever.
Yeah, man, that dude. Look, that guy. So he really wanted a DDT, and I was like, man, it's like
Can you do a DDT?
I said, well, one, I'm not gonna let you do that, but I said, no, he was wanting to do this DDT really bad, and I was like, bro, we're second match, man. We're gonna have a boring match. What we're gonna do is get through this match. We're gonna get the people, to where they need to be. We're not gonna do too much because it's the second match. And, all that extra stuff, that's for everybody else. And it's not that I'm lazy. It's just, one, I'm not going to trust my body to somebody. Well, one, when they tell you, oh, he hasn't wrestled for a long time, but he listens. That's a lie. That is a lie.
He listens real good.
He listens really good. He listens. No, you're lying. You're a lying booker or promoter.
Or when they tell you, he's been wrestling for 10 years, and then you go up and say, how many matches have you had? 5? Now, wait a minute. You've been wrestling for 10 years, but you've only had 5 matches.
Yeah.
Math does not compute.
So, yeah, in this match, he's I know that he was going to be a problem because then he started getting really vocal in his matches with the crowd and everything. I said, oh, here we go. I said, here we go. I said, I'm going to have to wake him up.
Yeah.
It's gonna hit. He's going to get hit with a live round. So, I'm trying to work with him, and then I just put him in the corner, and I blast him one time to, bring down his adrenaline level.
I taught you that, didn't I?
Yeah, just chop him with, hey, man, when I say back first. Yeah. So he hits the splash, and then he's just like, yeah, I'm going to hit the splash and hit this DDT. So he hits the splash, and then I see him trying to pull me down to the DDT. First thing I do is I turn around and I grab the second rope and I just hold him there. I said, "Nah, man." That's
it's like that.
I just kind of
that meme.
Oh
hell no!
Yeah, I wasn't gonna do that because he was getting like too ahead of himself. He's getting too excited. So I went ahead and this is back when I was using like a hangman's neck breaker as a finish.
I was gonna say we do have another question. This one's from Yo Bro Gaming and Reviews. Shout out to Yo Bro. I do actually do some podcasts with them on YouTube as well.
Yo Bro.
They're pretty cool. They're a pretty cool group. But their question is, says, I agree anyone can swing a chair. Can you guys recall matches that were hardcore per se that did tell a good story? Example, Mankind Royal Rumble 99 match had a fantastic story. Again, like I was saying, basically anything with Terry Funk in it.
Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine, 1983 Starrcade chain match.
There you go.
It wasn't necessarily a hardcore match, but it was a gimmick match, and it told a good story. I can watch that match every day.
Wahoo McDaniels with the bull rope or the cowbell. Those kind of matches do work when there's a reason for it, and you work the psychology for that match. Mm-hmm. If you're just beating each other with stuff, anybody can do that.
Right.
Backyard yardards can do that. But if there's a reason for this match, if it's been built up to the point where this is the only way to settle this issue, and then you got guys that are using wrestling and mixing in with the hardcore elements, yes, it's going to work.
Right.
But it's not every show. It's not even every month. That would be, for me, maybe every year, maybe every other year. Because if you do it too often, it takes away the importance and the specialness of it. It's just like when Too Cold Scorpio would do his little double flip belly flop. He did it all the time. It was really cool the first 3-4 times.
Right.
3 years into it, he's doing it again.
I'll tell you a guy who used a special move. He only used it 5 times in his career. right, was Kenta Kobashi.
Yeah, Burning Hammer.
Burning Hammer was the end-all, be-all. Because Kenta Kobashi was big enough and strong enough to beat you on his own. But the Burning Hammer, like everybody in the indie now, like when they say it, that's just what they do on a regular. But Kenta Kobashi, that's a move that's been protected probably better than the pile driver, in my opinion. Because he was like, I think he's the innovator of it. And it, you know.
Well, and then that's the thing. You know, it used to be that moves like that, or Jake the Snake Roberts DDT, or, you know, they were
anybody kicking out of Jake Roberts.
Those moves were protected.
Yeah.
But now, you have guys that, because they can do the move, they'll hit it 6 times in a match, and it doesn't mean anything. Like, to me, like my finisher is the clothesline from hell, the lariat, Stan Hansen lariat, whatever you want to call it. I protect that. If I hit you with that, the match is over.
That's right.
Now, mind you, there are plenty of ways for me not to hit you with it when I go for it, and you be able to do something. But if that, like, I protect my finish. I protect it because I want it to mean something. I want the fans to know if it gets hit, you know, it's over.
And back to the question, yes, hardcore can work, but only in the appropriate setting. That's my opinion of it. I have had an associate who called himself an exclusive hardcore wrestler. I told him it's because you don't know how to wrestle.
I know what you're talking about.
It offended him. But the thing was, I watched him try to wrestle regular matches, and he didn't know a wrist lock from a wrist lock. And then to watch him do a hardcore match, it was terrible. It was like watching 2 8-year-olds hit each other with cookie sheets.
Yeah.
Very fat, very old, very hairy 8-year-olds hitting yours with cookie sheets.
And there's nothing worse than hairy 8-year-olds, let me tell you.
This is the red flag when guys say they do, oh yeah, I only do hardcore. If they show up with weightlifting gloves and camo pants and motorcycle boots, and they're balding.
Or
in
the Midwest, it was...
So you can't see them from the waist down, and they're wearing bitch mittens.
I was gonna say, or in the Midwest, it was the Hot Topic wrestlers, where they would always have Hot Topic gear. You're like, oh, I know where you shop, you know, because they'd come in with trip pants and, you know, Marilyn Manson shirt. It's like,
my bad, that was my first gimmick, so I didn't know any better.
Hey, we won't hold that against you. We won't hold that against you.
There wasn't too many people making spandex outfits in Jackson County, Florida. So yeah.
I mean,
not even heterosexual people.
I don't think there's too many of them up there either. So
I guess if you were in a rock band, you can get spandex from back then, but
I think that's how Bobby Dahl got into wrestling, because he was part of a rock and roll band before.
Yeah, I think he probably already had that stuff. Yeah, because he was a glam rocker.
Yeah.
He had the big hair. He had the big hair.
Called Legacy, I think.
Yeah.
He had better hair than his wife.
He really did.
Yes, he did.
No, you're right on hardcore. Some of the best matches I've seen hardcore wrestling they've been a blow off. There's been a reason for them to finish up some program between 2 guys so you can get on to the next one. Just having them to have them, is just to give some guys like a niche is ridiculous. So I think having them on independent wrestling shows are just ridiculous. There's no reason for them. There's no psychology to it. There's no storyline. Why are these 2, jackwagons beating the hell out of each other with barbed baseball bats? I mean, it makes no sense. So,
speaking of that, we need to get Danny Rowland to tell the story about when Jerry Reiner and what's his name, Dwayne McLeod, came into Robert Gibson's wrestling school and beat the crap out of each other. That's a funny story.
Well, we'll definitely have to get Danny on a future episode of the podcast. I definitely think that
I'm going to go back to what you were talking about, finishes. And nowadays, they're not finishes. They're just special moves.
Right.
I can't really think of many moves that people don't kick out of. The only one that comes to my mind is the One Wing Angel. I don't think I've seen anybody kick out of that.
I'm kicking out of it next time.
Yeah, you should. If somebody can put you in the one-wing angle, that's a man.
Right. If he does, I'm not kicking out. Because
But even like Okada's Rainmaker, that's a cool move. But how many does he have to hit usually to get the pin? That's not a finisher. That's just a special move. Like you said, Jake the Snake Roberts DDT. I can't think of any time that anybody kicked out of it. Can you?
No.
I mean, people kicked out of Arn Anderson's
Well,
and
that's
stuff.
like
right.
Rogers said. Yeah, like Rick Rogers said, if somebody's kicking out of your finisher, it's not, and in his words, somebody kicks out of your finisher, it's not a fucking finisher.
Right. I mean, around here, only one guy, like when me and Twan were tagging TA, when we had the H bomb, and one guy was dumb to kick out of that, and I'm too small to power bomb somebody, but I power bombed somebody, and I said, "Hey man, don't kick out of this."
We do have some more comments. Yobro said, false finishers devalue them. It's redundantly done 90% of the time. This is awesome chants are pointless when you've seen them before. Right. He said, kicking out of each other's finisher every time you have a big match doesn't make it awesome. They have the announcers say that it's a devastating move. Yeah, I mean, and that's my thing. Like, even WWE is really bad about it now, where they'll have
NXT's bad about it.
Well, I mean, yeah. And they'll have somebody kick out of like 6 or 7 moves that should have ended the match.
Right.
Even if it wasn't the guy's finisher. He took a power bomb off a ladder through a table and gets back up out of kicks out of it. I mean, it's again, it goes back to they don't protect the moves anymore. They rely on the flashy moves instead of relying on actual wrestling and actual ring psychology to get the matches over.
I took Frankie Kane to a show in Florala one time. They were honoring him because of his contribution to wrestling. Yeah. He's the one who gave Moody his name, Percy Pringle III. And we're watching a hardcore match. And there was a spot where somebody took a bowling ball to the crotch. Stand up, drop. And then they kept going for another 7 minutes. Frankie leaned over to me and said, the bowling ball should have been the finish. Because in real life, you, me, Aaron, if we get hit in the nuts with a bowling ball,
it's done.
The match is over.
Whether the match is over or not, the match is over. I'm done.
The fight's done.
Yeah.
And that's part of what's missing from professional wrestling. It mimicked reality.
Yeah.
So the real thing was Ed Strangler Lewis, his finish was a headlock. He could knock anybody out with that headlock. And it looked like it did. There was legitimacy to it. He was one of the toughest hooks of that time. So, yeah, if somebody got caught in his headlock, holy crap.
Well, you had the Weaver lock, too,
Weaver lock, too. Or the Cobra Clutch. Or the $1 Million Dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. These are legit holds. And they were put over as legit. But to do a frog splash off a 20-foot ladder through a table and then get up and fight another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, and this is what drives me nuts. I don't know if you guys pay attention to the E's stuff right now.
No.
But they've got Leo Rush on there. Comes out with Bobby Lashley. He's his like manager, mouthpiece, valet, whatever the heck you want to call him. Leo Rush, when he signed with WWE, he had one or two matches left before he went to the thing. He took a power bomb off a ladder through a table and no-sold the power bomb. I saw
that. And that was terrible.
And I'm like, not only did he kill everything that they did in that match, but he also killed everybody else's match that night because he just showed that none of the stuff that they did meant anything.
Right.
And that's one of the main issues, again, that I have with wrestling today is most of the wrestlers, I'm not saying all the wrestlers because, the group here plus some of the people that we know still have respect for the business. But 90% of the wrestlers that wrestle today do not have respect for the business, for the craft, for the people in the business, for themselves. Like, there's such a lack of respect. They talk about how they'll come out and they'll talk about how they're the best and how, you know, they'll put themselves over 100%, but they don't have the respect for themselves or the business enough to say, okay, I don't want to kill everybody else in this show. I don't want to, you know, make everybody's matches mean nothing, make my match mean nothing, and go out there and do this. Instead, they go out there and they, you know, instead of going out there and making their stuff mean something. Like when I was, like my trainer had told us something whenever we were training. He said, don't do anything in the match that doesn't mean anything, and know what everything you do means to the match.
Then it makes sense.
And then, I mean, that's the biggest issue today, in my opinion, is, again, they would rather go out there and because they can do all this stuff, they want to do it every match instead of limiting what they do in the match, but making everything mean something.
Right. Well, I think too, it's just like in real life. If you have respect for yourself and you carry yourself with that kind of respect, other people respect you. I respect what I do as a professional wrestler. I'm not a sports entertainer. I'm a professional wrestler.
Same here.
And I really take pride in what I do. It's not a novelty. I'm not a sideshow freak. I am a professional wrestler. And I'm quick to correct people. That, especially, you know, we've all been hit with the, isn't that fake?
I usually say, if it's fake, get in the ring with me. I'll show you how fake it is.
I rattle off the litany of injuries that I've had. It sure didn't feel fake to me.
Oh yeah, I've had people. Well, it's just like landing on a trampoline. I'm like, first of all, you get in there and take a flat back bump in that ring.
That's the first thing I say.
You tell me it's like landing on a trampoline.
I said, this is not a trampoline. It is not a trampoline. I repeat that all the time.
I showed somebody a picture of the ring up in Indiana with the elite guys, and it had the spring, you know, it's a spring center ring, and they're like, "Oh wow, see, I knew it was like a trampoline. You got a spring in there." I'm like, "No, the spring makes it damn worse. It makes it harder."
Yeah, it's like hitting concrete.
Concrete.
Or you know, the ring Sika has.
Like that.
That thing is literally concrete.
Yeah, it's not soft.
No,
It's not as bad as Bobby Wilson's old
the
ring.
the porch. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The collarbone snapper.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when I owned my ring, I actually had an old WWA ring, and it had a, like, freaking semi-truck tire spring underneath the center of it. Like, it was literally softer landing on the apron than it was landing in the center of my ring.
Well, going back to what I was saying, when we start to respect ourselves and respect our business here in this area, and what I mean by respecting, that we start policing it better, start removing the ones who bring a bad name to this industry, and start treating this like a profession, then it's going to start to change. The image of professional wrestling will change in this area. Because what you told me a while back, that this area is looked at like it's the island of lost toys.
Yeah.
Or misfit toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Gibson said many years ago, you know, Gulf Coast Wrestling, where you know, it's the Gulf Coast where professional wrestling goes to die, and it refuses to.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
well, we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
That promoters who want to use free or next to free, no matter how poorly trained they are, because they have this mentality that, well, it's good enough. If it's not excellent, it's not good enough. That's my opinion on that.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it's you know, it's one of those things too where, like, to me, and this goes along with your policing of the wrestling. To me, if you get with somebody and they are not necessarily doing it the correct way, and you get in there and you say, look, I'm willing to show you what to do and teach you. If you're willing to learn, you know, then we can
Speaking of policing,
can do
shout out
something
to
with it.
Zane Stevens.
Yes.
But here's the funny thing with that. I guess you're talking about that battle royal with the little
Yeah,
shot.
man.
Oh, with Sandbag.
And Zane is such a class act that afterwards he went over and he tried to explain to Sandbag what happened, why, and the whole reasons why. So because Zane like us wants to make the business better, but he did what anybody should have done in the ring, especially because dude towed him right in the damn ribs. So he handled business like a professional.
Well, this is the same guy that I was working with him, and he's laying on the ring in the mat. And I told him, "Get up, you still got stuff to do." And he looks me in the face and says, "I got asthma." And he's a 2-pack a day smoker, from what I was told.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I'm working with him again, and he told me he needs a break. And I told him straight to his face, "You're lazy. Not that I have a lot, but you want what I have without working for it.
Right.
Now, either you're going to get here and start working, or you can take your break, and I'll never help you again." And he just looked me in the face and said, "I need a break." And they wouldn't put me in a ring with him because I would have done exactly what Zane did. And the fact that he kayfabed a knee injury so he wouldn't have to wrestle someone who was going to whip his tail. That's the type of person that does not belong in a wrestling ring. It doesn't belong on a show.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh no, I was just agreeing that rolls back to that, like Jake said earlier, where you take these guys that say they're trained and the bookers put them in the ring, and they're putting them with people that don't know, and now people are scared because back in the day, if you went back to the 80s, Ole Anderson, or Buzz Sawyer, those guys, man, they would have beat the absolute hell out of one of us for a slight mistake, let alone some jackleg that shouldn't even be in the ring. So I think we're just scared of doing that because lawsuits or whatnot. So
I think a lot of the problem.
Yeah, I long for the days of Bob Roode.
Yeah. Well, like when we were coming in with the Pensacola Wrestling Alliance, that's when guys like Bob Liddell, they got inside of the business even though they knew nothing about it. Mm-hmm. And they had this mentality that everyone has a right to try and have their dream. The thing is, if you can't do it, you can't do it. That's why I'm a big proponent. If you don't see video or film of someone, that they get to the show early, and you get in the ring and work with them, or somebody gets in the ring and works, and you see what they got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if they are up to standard, use them. If they're not there yet, hey, use you as a referee. Love to work with you. Get you to where I want you to be, because I have a certain standard that I'm going to put in the ring.
Yeah.
Well, and that's again, that needs to be one of the major issues with the promoters is they need to work on making sure that there is a standard of the wrestler that they put in there, not just throwing somebody in there because they're free or because they'll do it for a hot dog and a handshake,
or their friends.
Yeah, or they're their friends. And the other thing that drives me nuts is when you have somebody that will get upset with a company, leave the company, start their own company, and then they make themselves the champion,
right? And
never lose. It's like, if you're just doing it because you're a belt mark, that's not a reason to do it. If you're doing it because if you're leaving the company and starting a company because the company that you're leaving isn't doing it correctly,
right?
then that's different. But if you're leaving it just because, oh, well, they wouldn't make me a champion or they wouldn't make me the top guy, well, apparently you weren't up to snuff to be the top guy if they weren't making you the top guy.
It was kind of like when Misawa left All Japan, started Noah. It was because, Baba's wife wasn't up to where Baba was. And they made the right decision. But they also understood the reason for things done in wrestling, where they try to get the entire show over so everyone can make money.
Yobro said, cough, cough, Jeff Jarrett. Ha, ha, ha.
Ain't he great?
Yeah.
Yes.
Vern Gagne.
Yeah. El Greg Gagne. No. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's going to take either a company starting up and basically running every other company out of business, or it's going to take all the companies getting together and saying, look, we're going to quit booking people just because they're flashy or just because they will work for free, and we're going to put the product ahead of, put the product first.
Yeah, as you
put
should.
But
I don't think people think about that. Like, I don't even I think if they thought about it, they would put their product first. But I don't think that they necessarily make conscious decisions and say, yeah, I'm going to protect my product versus having a body that's there to lay down for somebody.
Well, I also think that when we're looking at the promotions, that you have to get like the wrestlers on board of everybody in the area, because one of the things I've noticed is that everybody in the Panhandle works for every wrestling company. So like I work for, I guess Revolt a little bit. Now whenever they name me, New Wave, XWX, XW, just here locally, but it's all the same talent on the card. And if the guys would say, hey, we're not going to work for this janky promoter, we're not going to work for this one, then we'll go work for only these guys, then those janky promoters are going to be put out of business. But at the same time, those guys can pick up a phone call and call the guys down in South Florida, call the guys in Georgia, Alabama to come down and put on a show, and not even use local guys, kind of like like Elite does. Most of their guys aren't from here, which kind of says a lot about the talent that they have to draw from. They'd rather book guys from Louisiana and Texas than dudes just down the road.
Yeah, I mean, to me that's kind of here nor there. Like, to me, you want to try, like, if there's talent here that is of good standard, it's worth booking them. Don't not book them just because they're from here.
It's worth paying them.
Yeah, and it's worth paying them.
Right.
I mean, if you're, with, like you said, with Elite, I mean, if they're willing to pay for people to come from Texas, I mean, if they book me, I'm damn sure not going to charge them the same amount a guy from Texas is going to charge them. Mm-hmm. And I'm local. But it's a matter, like, again, it's a matter of, yeah, I'd love that they have standards of the guys that they want to bring in, but they shouldn't discredit all of the talent around here just because they're from this location.
Right. Yeah, and I don't know if that's their reasoning for doing that, because I don't, never communicated, but it would seem that would kind of be, historically, based on some of the talent, that you do have to draw from, hey, let's just go get these guys from other places. Yeah. So, but maybe, it's their friends and the guys they know, and, they know what they're going to get. So, there's a lot of little factors in there. But at the same time, I mean, if we all just kind of back down from working with these janky promoters, going into, small town A or small town B, and get out, maybe they'll stop promoting.
Ole Anderson just tweeted, "Wrestling is dead. Call it something else. Dinner theater for men. And there's a lot of old timers that have that sentiment. Jim Cornette says it all the time. Frankie Kane would tell me that it's dead. And the reason why Ole was saying this is because someone texted, I guess down in Australia, Cody Rhodes and what's his name? Joey Ryan had a staring contest in the middle of the ring. And I'm looking at the video now, and it's the stupidest thing. Joey Ryan sticks a lollipop in Cody's mouth, and they're just standing there, and they're just staring at each other. And why?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. I know there's lots of people that love Joey Ryan.
I don't think he's funny. I don't think he's good.
I don't understand how somebody who literally relies on, for lack of better terms, a dick spot to get himself over gets all these bookings. I mean, it's
you're basically booking for your 20-something-year-old Fortnite fans.
Yeah. I mean, it's
well, All In was a great pay-per-view. I enjoyed
until
it
the dick druids.
Until the guys who came out in the inflatable penis costumes.
Yeah, the dick druids.
Totally killed everything to me.
Yeah. And again, that's like I was saying earlier, killed the whole show.
Right. Yeah, I'm a big fan of his.
Did y'all see the 70th anniversary NWA?
No.
I have not got a chance to watch it yet.
I saw the highlights of the best out of 3.
Okay.
It was okay.
I will revisit it later.
But
yeah, I saw the highlights of the national title match. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
I like the belt.
Yes.
Throwback
to the old school.
Yeah, the Detroit Chic belt.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it looks
Chic
good.
Baby.
It looks good around Willie Mack's waist too.
I think Willie Mack's great. They're doing a great thing with him in Dragon's
So
Gate.
hopefully,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, hopefully Jake and I will be at the Crockett Cup next year.
Yes,
So that's kind of our goal.
For everybody watching the podcast and everything, hit Jerry Jarrett and all them up on Twitter. You want the Emerald Empire at the Crockett Cup in 2019. We are pushing to try to get on the Crockett Cup because it's not only a goal for us, but it would be just amazing to be able to represent this local area for the Crockett Cup.
And it gives me more reason to be in the gym.
It's the only reason why I go and kind of work out. It's because of wrestling.
But
that yoga pants.
I guess if there's no more questions coming from the chat, or if you guys, anybody have any more topics that they want to bring up?
And I think we ought to save them for later podcasts because there's still a ton of stuff we could talk about.
Okay. Well, I guess we are going to.
I got all kinds of things to bitch about.
I guess we are going to go ahead and finish up on this podcast for the day.
The inaugural podcast.
The premier inaugural. I can't even get it out.
That's what she said.
Podcast for the Emerald Empire podcast.
Just lift it up. No draws.
And I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us. I know.
Where am I on the camera?
There you go.
Yep. Getting it. There we go.
I'm delayed.
I want to thank Marcus and Mike and Aaron for being here and everything. Like I said,
dang it! I look right at the damn thing.
Like I said, we also we also are going to try to get some more people. Like I said, I would love to get Danny on here.
Cyrus.
Yeah, Cyrus. I would
That's
love
the guy
to
you
get.
need to meet.
I would also like. We are also gonna try to
Cyrus
get.
is having his turn match tonight.
Yeah.
Yay!
Good luck, Cyrus.
Yeah.
Be safe.
No injuries.
We are also going to try to get some local legends on here. Hopefully, I would like to see if maybe get Bullet Bob on here, kind of talk to him and see what his thoughts are on independent wrestling today. Right. But we're going to push for that. Let us know what you guys thought of the podcast. Make sure to hit us up on Twitter. You can hit me up at the Jake Capone. Marcus, what's your Twitter?
You can hit me up at Mr. Gibbs at War. It's not really a wrestling Twitter. It's really just to share music and stuff, but you can hit me up on there. Or really, you can hit me up on Facebook, Wrestler Marcus Gibbs. And on my Instagram, Octane_Marcus_Gibbs.
Also, be sure to check out Marcus's stuff on Spotify too. He's got some music up on Spotify. Check it out; it's pretty good.
World music,
Yeah.
and it's
Some good stuff.
yeah. She still doesn't pick me up as one of her talents. I've tried. And then Aaron, what's your stuff for them to follow you on everything?
Mine is at Aaron Idol 1 is the number 1. So follow me for quips, quotes, just random. And I like to piss off blue checks. So that's always a fun time for me. And I think I found your replacement, Jake, your tag team here. So Maud said she's ready to go in. She just needs a hot bag.
I was gonna say I see she's trying to French kiss you. It looks like.
Jesus, yeah, women, man, women. So, and also fans, don't forget to shout out us on Twitter, the Emerald Empire, to get Jake and I recognized to represent the Emerald Coast for that Crockett Cup 2019.
The Empire for Crockett.
You guys deserve a better tag team.
Hashtag Empire for Crockett.
Yes. And also, we do now have a Twitter for the Emerald Empire. It's One Emerald Empire, at One Emerald Empire, sorry. And you can follow the tag team on there, and we will let you know where we're going to be, when we're going to be, why we're going to be, and who we're going to be beating up.
Right.
Actually, December 1st in, what's the town in Mississippi?
There's a lot of towns in Mississippi.
West Alabama's going to be mad at me. Right on the edge of Mississippi. I'll be wrestling.
So pick a town on the edge of Mississippi, and Marcus might
Gulf
be there.
Shores. Is it Gulf Shores? Gulfport, Mississippi, or Gulf Shores, Mississippi? That's Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Gulfport, yeah, Gulfport.
I'll post a poster on Facebook.
And
December
then-
1st.
You can follow me on Facebook, Michael Jacobs. I have a couple of Twitters. Probably follow me on the Manbassador. I can't even remember my Twitter one. It's I'm 100% American made. The other one's a little bit more political, so you want to follow me on there if you want to like me. And that's about it. I'm not all techie like you guys are.
Yeah. No, I'm not tech.
And be sure to like and subscribe the YouTube channel. Maybe you can help the Emerald Empire get monetized if you like and subscribe our channel.
Yeah, we're going to get a Patreon. Matter of fact, this will be a good idea for Patreon. If you're on the indies and you want us to critique your match just for fun, just to see what other people think, send us your match, and then
you're matching $5, and we'll critique it.
And we'll critique it.
We have over 85 years of experience between the four of us. So let us critique your matches for $5, and we'll.
But if you take me being an entertainer and in sports, I've been in sports since I was 6 years old. I've been an entertainer since I was like 13. So I've been a sports entertainer for like over 30 years. So yeah, my opinion matters. Maybe. Yeah, it does. It matters. Listen to me.
All opinions matter, brother.
But other than that,
I would say I'm an entertainer, but just a bass player.
Again, like I said,
I'm good at farting.
Follow Marcus. Check out his music. Check out follow all of us. Make sure to check out Yo Bro Nation on YouTube.
Yo Bro.
Again, they do gaming, movie reviews, wrestling reviews. He reviews Raw and SmackDown every week. All the pay-per-views.
Yo Bro, I have a similar. It's Yo Bro Hunting and Fishing, so follow me on that. I'm lying.
I would actually like to see. I would like to see you hunting or fishing.
Hey man, someone take me hunting.
Marcus runs from various and sundry animals.
Is that a squirrel? Ah! Take my friend. Anyway,
Shoot it! Shoot it!
That is going to be it for us, and we are going to sign off. So everybody have an awesome day, and we will see you guys for the next podcast.